Okay, so today what I want to do is show you how to put together a really cool kind of whole package deal here. So this is an old HP tablet. It's running Android. This is a TNC 3.5 on a Patton Robotics motherboard. And I have a low energy Bluetooth module here. And here we have a 3-color LED that we can turn on and off. And of course on my desktop here you'll see that I have the MIT app Inventor, which I use to put together this nice little application that was downloaded onto the Android, which will allow me to use speech to text and then transmit that text over via Bluetooth to the TNC, and then from there it can do the processing of the information and of course respond appropriately, like turning on and off the LED. So I'll do a little demonstration here. To get it going, you simply have to tell it ready to receive a speech. Red on. Oops. Actually, believe it or not, that's not going to work. I immediately forgot that red is always picked up as past tense for read, so I want to change that to orange. So hold on. Let's try that again. Green on. Green off. Orange on. Blue off. Orange off. Okay, so let me get this set up and I'll show you how I did it, and hopefully we can get it all done in one video, maybe two. See you in a second. Okay, for this next part, we've got a real chicken and egg sort of problem here. We need to write code in the Arduino that will allow it to respond to Bluetooth, and then we also need some way of actually sending a Bluetooth signal. Okay? So I'm actually going to propose writing a little app that does not require the text interfacing. It just goes ahead and works just with a button. Okay, so let's get started by first looking at the Arduino code, and I think I'll probably post this with a link so we don't have to actually watch me write it. I have other videos on the subject. I can put some links in the web, and you can find it. But overall, let's take a quick look at the code and maybe explain a little bit about what's going on. So let me get some of this other stuff. We'll just make it full screen for them. Well, here, we'll put it over here a little bit. We'll make it full screen. Okay. So what do we got going on? No, actually I don't like that. I'm going to put it right here. All right. So what do we got going on? To establish Bluetooth communication, we're going to have to open up yet another port. One of the things I really like about the TNCs is it does have hardware serial ports. You can do this with an Uno as well, but you'll probably have to set up a software port. The TNC 3.5 or even the 3.2 or less all have hardware ports. Okay, so that's actually what I'm going to be using right here. I've created a hardware port. I'm using serial 1, which on a TNC 3.5 and 3.2, 3.0, and 3.1, I think, is on pins 0 and 1. Okay, so I'm taking those two pins and I'm setting them up as a hardware port, and I'm going to call it Blue T. All right, so I've defined my hardware port 1, Blue T. And then I'm going to create a couple of variables that we can use. We're going to have an out string and a temp string. This is the one we're actually going to be looking at for its contents. The temp string is the string we're going to be building as each character comes in one by one, and we have to assemble it. The in character is going to be the variable that holds that individual character as it streams down the serial line. Then, of course, I got my LEDs hooked up to pins 21, 22, and 23 over here. My setup, what I've got going on is just opening up a serial port, and I'm going to wait. This while not serial is going to keep my code this in loop until that serial monitor is open. Okay, And then I open up the blue T port at 9600. That's my hardware serial that I defined up here. This is just basically a hunk of code that flashes the light. Well, actually, this turns the pins that the LEDs are hooked up to output. I get a little message that says it's ready, and then I flash each of the three colors for half a second on and off, so 1 second each, just to make sure that I know everything is running. That way I can also know if I see my LED light flashing at any one time, it means that my processor has reset, and I'll probably have to reestablish communication. So it's a good idea to have some kind of indicator in your setup so that you know whether or not something's gone wrong. So in my loop, I'm going to call my get blue tooth signal, which is down here. And what it does here is this puts it in an infinite loop until something gets in the serial buffer. So while the serial buffer is empty, it's just looping there. It never goes on. If that serial buffer has something in it, what we do is we read that very first character, that N character, and we get one character at a time. This is a debug line if you want to watch those characters roll off. And I like to use a terminating character. There are ways around it. We can look for line returns and various other things. But I find just choosing a character as the end of a sequence to be the most effective. And I've chosen the hashtag or the pound sign. Notice the single quotes. It's a single character. Okay? So I'm going to be looking for this hashtag. And if the hashtag is found, what that's going to do is that's going to mean that the out string is going to be equal to my temp string. And perhaps I should talk about the temp string first. If the hashtag is not found, what ends up happening is the temp string gets built longer and longer and longer by adding the most recent in character to the temp string. Okay? So the temp string is just going to add piece by piece by piece by piece. If the piece is a hashtag, then it's going to set the out string, the string I'm interested in, to equal to the temp string. Okay, so now that total bunch of characters has been put into the out string. We want to go ahead and get rid of this lingering character, so we go ahead still and add the hashtag onto the temp string after it's been collected from the buffer, and then we just set temp string to 0, so essentially we clear it out. Here I can actually output what the out string is actually equal to. So now we've collected the data from the out string, okay? And of course now, because we're no longer in this loop and we've broken free, we've made it down to the end of the function, it jumps into this next, which I built into the loop. And here what I end up doing is I start looking for the out string arrangement that matches up. So I've chosen orange on, orange off, green on, green off, etc., etc., etc. And if I get an error, I end up with this waiting for guidance. Okay, so that kind of explains the whole Bluetooth. And like I said, I'll post a link to it on the below on this page where you can download this code and look at it and you know, modify it as you need. More than likely, you'll be changing just what's in these quotes if you're going to be customizing your own sort of function. So that being said, I'm going to clean up my desktop, stop this for a moment, and we'll continue on as soon as I get ready to show you how to build this app. Okay, so now it's time to build the app that's going to communicate with our Bluetooth so we can test it out. And to do that, we need to be working in the App Inventor. And let me just show you, this is super cool. There's a lot of neat options here. So for example, if you want to, you can actually download an emulator, all right, which is a lot of fun. It'll run right over here on the side, and you don't even have to upload or download it to your Android. Now, unfortunately, that doesn't work so well for our Bluetooth testing. I actually don't know for certain. My computer doesn't have Bluetooth, or I didn't have it enabled, so it didn't seem to work well. But for any other application or games, you can do an emulator and just develop your own software and never have to worry about activating or turning on your phone, which is also handy if you don't happen to have an Android phone. The other way to do it is just to go ahead and hook it straight up to your Android phone, in which case you don't have to install anything. It's all web-based. It's real beautiful. So if we go here, you can do it traditionally. You can go to the Play Store, the App Store, whatever you want to do. And then from there, of course, you can type it in and download it, or you can scan it. And then on this device, on your PC where you're writing it, you simply have to, click on the Create Apps. Now, I'm already logged in with my Google account, so I get an immediate launch. You would probably have to log in with something and set up an account. But once you're there, you're good to go. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's develop that app that we were working with, this one right here. And I'll develop it here from scratch. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go Projects. I'll start a new project. And let's call this, we'll call it Blue Test. And we get this nice blank screen, and we're ready to go. Now, you might recall, and I'm just going to be duplicating things, so it's going to be easy. We can go back and forth. But there are a couple of fundamental pieces that we're going to need. Obviously, we're going to need to have Bluetooth. We're going to have a couple of communications and buttons. So I'm going to drag it all on here. So the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to Connectivity, and I'm going to grab a Bluetooth client. I'm going to simply toss it on there, and you can see it pops up down here. The other thing I'm going to need is a clock, because you know how frustrating Bluetooth is. Sometimes it connects and it just drops out. I'm going to be using a clock to constantly monitor whether or not I have a good connection, and we'll see it display up here on a label if it doesn't have a good connection. That being said, we should go ahead and put a label on there. Let's go to the user interface, and I'm going to put a label up here. And I'm actually going to make things kind of big because I don't have a lot of plans for a lot of stuff. I'm going to make the font pretty good size. I'm going to make the width fill the parent so it goes all the way across, and I'm going to center justify it. Okay, and then let's label this connection or something. Okay. And the next thing we want to do is we need to be able to select our Bluetooth, from our menu. So to do that, I'm going to use a list picker. So I'm going to drag a list picker on here. And I'm going to set it at 28 as well. Kind of big. And I'm going to set the width for fill the parent. And say OK. And then I will say choose, well, I'll just call it Bluetooth. Alright, so now I've got my Bluetooth. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make my buttons, and I'm going to probably try to keep it a little bit organized. So I'm going to drag a table on here, and I'm going to have red, green, and blue. And I need them on and off, so I need 2 columns, 3 rows. So 2 columns, 3 rows, something like that. And then I'm going to take some buttons. We need, which I'm just going to kind of stack them in here for the moment. Need a button there, a button there. That'll be our red. That'll be our green. That'll be our blue. And I guess that's actually all we really need. I'll build one of these and pause it, because it's just going to be a lot of labeling. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this button. I'm going to call this one red on. Notice if even though I put a space here, it's going to be smart and put an underscore there so it can deal with it. I'll make the font a bit bigger again like I did before. And I'm going to have this one labeled red on. Okay, so I'm going to do that for the rest of these. I'm going to pause it. I'm going to build the rest of these buttons. I'll be right back. Okay, so we've created this little template here, kind of crudely, but it'll work. And I've renamed all my buttons and changed all their text. So now it's time to actually put some functionality to it. So to do that, we need to move over to blocks. Okay, and this is where we're going to be working with all of our blocks. It's going to give it the functionality to each of the buttons. And you'll see that we have all these different buttons and things that we created are available, and of course all the other options and things that we can do with them are all here. So as we click on them and scroll them, these are all things we can snap into our blocks. So let's get started with it. Let's go back. So the first thing we want to do is we want to work with our list picker. Oops, look at that, I got a crash. Hold on, let me pause it. Sorry about that. It's a little bit touchy sometimes when it starts showing off various things. You want to stay focused and not super fast when you're playing with this web-based software. But let's get going on it. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we have to be able to connect to that Bluetooth. All right, and that was done with our list picker. Okay, that's where we actually have our options that show up for which Bluetooth we're going to hook up to. So before we pick it, okay, we really need to populate the list. So what we do is we click, when it's before picking. Then what we want to do is we want to find the elements we want to put into it. And you got to get it so it snaps on there. There we go. What we want to do is we want to be able to find the Bluetooth and scroll down. We want to grab the addresses. Okay, so now we've populated the list. All right, so now the next step is, okay, well, it's populated. Let's now go back up to list picker, and after we pick it, okay, what we want to do is actually want to put a little bit of logic in here now. And to do that, we're going to go here. I'm sorry, I'm not going to go here. We want to go to control. I'm so sorry. Control. We want to do a simple if statement, like so. And if we're able to connect, so what we're going to connect to is the Bluetooth client. And we want to connect, so we want to call Bluetooth connect. And we want to go to the list picker selection. So let's go up to the list picker selection. List picker selection. Hold on a second. There it is. Wait, there's a lot of choices here. Your list picker selection. So if that actually connects, then we want to set the element to that connection. So let's go back here to our list picker element, and so it's going to have so many choices here. There it is, the list picker element, and we can just copy this. Okay, so that has allowed us to actually find, we load up all the Bluetooth options, and then once we click on it, we then connect, and if it connects, it sets the option correctly. So now we have it all hooked up. The next thing we want to do is we kind of want to check to make sure it's continuing to connect. So that's what I talked about with the clock. So I'm going to take the clock, and up here, I'm going to put my clock, and I'm going to leave it at its interval. And here we need another hunk of logic. So I'm going to go with an if then else statement. All right. So if the Bluetooth is connected, so let's go down to our Bluetooth. If Bluetooth is connected, okay, then what we want to do is we want to set the label. So let's find that label we created at the very top. We want to set the label text. And then we go to text, and we can throw in a blank text. Okay, and we can say that here it's connected. And then else, we can set the text. I could have just copied it. I should have done that. And go back to text. And say lost connection or no connection or something. Okay, excellent. So now we have everything hooked up. We should be able to connect to Bluetooth. Once it's connected, we'll get it a confirmation. We'll be able to choose it with the list picker. So now all we have to do is put some functionality in the buttons. And that's not going to take long. So let's take our red on. And let's assume we're going to be clicking it. Okay. So when it's clicked, what we want to do is we want to send text. So we want to Bluetooth send text. And sometimes it takes a moment. There's so many of it here. Bluetooth send text. And the text that we want to send to match up, if you recall, was actually on the red I had it set for orange. So we want to go ahead and have it say here orange on. And remember, I was actually using a terminating character. Okay? So there's my orange on, and now I'm going to go to my red off button, and when it's clicked, I can actually do this. I'm going to copy it, duplicate it, I'm going to move it over there, and I'm going to change this to orange off. Okay, so I'm actually going to pause it because I'm going to do this with green and blue, so I'll be right back and we'll talk about it. Okay, so I've finished building all my different nodes here, and or my blocks, and I've got everything set up. So I'm actually ready to test it, I think. So I'm going to go, let's see, we'll pull this screen up and turn on the Android, and I'm going to launch the app, and it's going to be waiting now. So if I come over here to connect, and I click here, I'll actually choose to do it with the scan QR code. So let me come back over here. You can't see this, but I'm scanning the code. And if all goes well, you'll see the screen will open up, and it's sending it over. And what should happen, there we go, is it's now running here on the Android. So the first thing I need to do is find the Bluetooth. I'm actually running a low voltage HC05, so I'm going to link to that. And you can see now we have a good link because the light has stopped flashing so crazily. And if I click red on, of course the red goes on, green on, blue on, blue off, red off, green off. All right, so we have successfully built our first app, which communicates with Bluetooth to our Arduino compatible device. So we're ready now to actually construct that software that'll take text to speech. So let me get that set up, and we will be ready to go. So I'll see you in a second. So I was just about ready to start a whole new function, or a whole new program here. And it dawned on me that all we really need to do is add one more button and one more label, and we can use our existing code right here to do it. So why not reuse it? We'll just keep building on, because here we've got all our Bluetooth connection. Here we've got these nice buttons that we can already use. So why don't we just add on to this existing app and just make it just a little bit better. So what we need now is we need the text to the speech to text, and I believe that is, let's see, where is it under? Sensors? No, it is under media. So we need the speech recognizer. We'll throw that in there. And we're going to need another button. We'll take, we'll get a button, we'll call it, well, let's see, what do we want to call it? We'll call it, I'm going to rename it. I'll call it Get Text. Okay. And I'm going to have it, put in there Get Text. And let's make it 28, like we do everything else. And let's make it fill the parent, like that. Okay, so now we've got our button. I'm going to make it a little bit rounder. Nice rounded button this time. That's our Get Text. And then that's going to ultimately send it as well. So what we want to do next is we want perhaps a label down here that we can use to display the text that's actually being sent. So I'll put in here, I'll say this, text to send, and I will make it also 28. Let's make it center justified and the width fill the parent. Oh, that should be text. Okay, so that should do it for additional features. Now we just need to add functionality to these buttons. So let's go back over here to Block. And what we want to do is we want to work with the speech recognizer. And the first thing we should probably do, would be a good habit, to before getting a text, we should just make sure it's clear. Okay, so I'm going to stick this down here, and I'm going to clear that label. So let me go ahead and clear that label we created. What did I call it? Label 1, label 2, there it is. I should give it a better name, right? So let's call this label 2 text, and let's set it to clear. All right, and then after we get a text, so let's go ahead and click on our speech recognizer. And then after we get a text, ultimately we want that to update our label. Okay, so I'm actually going to copy that. It's going to update our label, and it's actually going to be, we're going to get rid of that. Actually, we're going to set it aside, so we're going to ultimately use it. What we want to do is we want to join it . And what we want to do is we want to get it joined to the speech recognizer result. Okay, so we go back to speech recognizer and we look for the result. And we need to amend to it our hashtag. Okay, so that is going to then update the label that's on the phone. And the next thing we need to do is we need to send it, right? So we want to send text. Actually, well, let's find it here. I could have copied it from above. Send text. You can snap it right there. And we're going to copy all of this. Okay. So now we're all set up. So it's going to clear it every time we're ready to go. And then now we're going to go ahead and we're going to gather the information. We're going to display it on our phone. And then we're also going to send it out via Bluetooth. So now the only thing we have to do is activate the button to actually make it go. So let's get our button. And when it's clicked, okay, like so, what we want to do is we want to get the speech recognizer to get text. Okay, I think that should work. So let me pause this video and give it a quick test, and I'll be right back with you. Okay, we are ready to test it. So open up the app, and now I'm going to go up here to connect. I'm going to grab my phone. I'm going to scan the code. I can see that it's connecting. All right. I'm going to go to my Bluetooth. I'm going to connect to my Bluetooth. And we're going to see the lights are working fine. And we'll do a text. Blue on. Green on. And I can push the buttons, turn them off. Okay, so everything seems to work. Hopefully this was useful, and once again, I'll see you again soon.